Flosstube friends! Today is Thursday, February 1st. Welcome and thank you for joining me. This is my Flosstube number 14. My name is Lynn and this is my channel called Those Missing Stitches. You can find me on Instagram, here on YouTube, and then also in Etsy for my fabric shop under the same name. Thank you for joining me. This is my channel all about cross stitch, and as of this month I'm also going to talk about books at the end of the video. Stitching and books are really a part of my everyday life. I've talked about it before, like I work in a library, I read every day, I'm a big book fanatic. Several of my pieces that I'm working on in cross stitch are related to books. All of my fabrics that are in my shop are named after book characters. So I'm just going to add a little piece at the end of the video starting this year about what I've been reading. Say like a line or two, a couple of lines about what I think about the book, and that's it. So if books are not your thing, you can always sign off before the end, but hang with me if books are your thing and you can see what I've been reading. Before I get into showing my WIPs, I did want to say an extra special thank you that in January I hit 2,000 subscribers on Flosstube. So yay! Thank you everybody for subscribing. I am going to do a giveaway at the end of this video. At the end of the cross stitch portion of the video, of a piece of fabric from my shop. So stick around for that if that's something you'd be interested in entering to win. So I do have a lot to talk about today. I was very productive in January. I got a lot of stitching done. I have several new starts. I actually have 2 finishes. I have lots of WIPs. I have a couple of patterns that I purchased. I didn't go crazy on the haul. I did purchase a couple of patterns though. I'm going to talk about my plans for February. I'll have the giveaway, then I'll talk about books. But first I wanted to talk about organization. I forgot to mention, I'm a big statistics and like data analytics geek. I love data. So I completely forgot in my last video to talk about my statistics for 2023. I do keep track of when it's, a pattern keeper compatible pattern, I do keep track of my stitches. So my tally for all of 2023 was 252,268 stitches. And that's amazing to me considering how busy I was. So I did have 33 new starts. I had 5 finishes and I only had 1 FFO. So I'm going to work on a little more balancing that, getting some FFOs and getting some stuff up and displayed. So along those lines of being a big like self-proclaimed data geek, back in, I think, November, Bridget, the museum stitcher, and everybody I talk about and everything I talk about on here, I'm going to link down below so you can get information if you're interested in more on what I talk about. She had mentioned that she was kind of playing around with a template in Notion by Stitching Natty. That's a cross-stitch tracker. You can do stitch tracking. You can do a database for your floss, a database for tracking your fabric. Excuse me. So I thought, I'm a little bit hesitant about anything web-based or app-based. I've been tracking my stitching in Excel for a couple years, and anything web-based or app-based, I'm a little bit hesitant to rely on because I don't know how long that's going to be supported, and I'm pretty sure there'll be some form of Microsoft or Microsoft Excel forever, or at least until this technology is still relevant. But I thought I'd give it a try because I don't have a ton of fabric or a ton of floss, but I'm starting to build up my inventory and starting to lose track of what I have. So I really wanted something to put that all together. So I give it a try. I believe it's like maybe $9. I went ahead and purchased it and I was playing with it in November and December and just really fell in love with it. So I did enter all of my fabric. I entered all of my floss, not my DMC, but my other flosses so I could have a database of everything that's in there. I've been keeping track of all my stitching in there, all of my patterns and my projects, things that I plan to start. There's pictures, there's ways to track them, but the feature I love the best is really the dashboard capabilities and how many like summaries and looking at monthly formats and looking at different ways to filter and sort and how many stitches you're doing by work in progress, what your percentage is. It's just a lot of almost, I wouldn't say infinite, but probably close to infinite possibilities of how you can customize it. So there's also a free template out there from Frizzy Lizzy Stitches, and I'll post that down below. I got hers as well because I was interested in her WIP Go board. And I integrated her WIP Go board and some of her categories that she's using for some of her current WIPs into my database. They're completely editable and customizable. So I have been playing with it a little bit to make it work, make one database that will work completely for me. And I even did some more today. It is a little bit, I mean, it's technology, so it's a little bit of a learning curve. Maybe not the easiest, but there's definitely some help tools out there if that's something you're interested in. So, um, I'm going to talk a little bit more about WIP Go. I was on the fence about WIP Go. It's always fascinated me, and I love when people do it, and I love seeing people's progress on it. But knowing me and my personality, like I work on I work on projects as I'm inspired to work on them. I don't necessarily work well with like you have to do this amount or you have to do a certain goal because then I start to feel guilty if I don't meet it and feel like I can't work on anything unless I do that. And if I'm not inspired to do that, then I just don't do anything. And it's like doesn't make sense. So, but I've been fascinated and I really was trying to play with Notion and play with Frizzy Lizzie's template and get to know Notion a little more. So I decided I'll just set up a board and see, just so I can play with it in Notion. And then let me say, for those that aren't familiar with WIP Go, it's like a bingo board of your cross stitch projects. This is something that Jessie Marie does stuff, who's also on Flosstube, came up with. And every square on the board has a project or some sort of goal or something. It doesn't have to be a specific WIP. Some people are doing like work on a sampler or work on a full coverage or work on a specific artist or do a new start or do a specific color. But whatever, there's 2 numbers that are called for the month and you work on whatever is in those squares for 2 numbers. I ended up setting up my board to with my WIPs. And then every full coverage, or sorry, not full coverage, every full cross stitch project, I have a goal of doing 1,000 stitches on that project. Every 10 stitch project, I have 2,000 stitches. I have an exception of 2 projects, which I think are Away We Ride and Kingdom of Books, that are paper patterns that are a little harder to follow, so they take me a little longer to get to 500 stitches. Those are at 500 versus 1,000. So I gave it a shot in January. It happened to be that the numbers were called in January were 9 and 22, which were projects I was going to work on anyway, and I met the goals. So I'm going to give it a try and see how it goes, but I'm really giving myself grace and freedom to, like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'll move on. That's fine. But you can't know until you try. But along those lines, I was also watching Crafty Gaming Jamie. I'll link her down below as well. And she also has just overarching goals of things she wants to accomplish during the year. And I did that last year and that did work fairly well for me. So I did end up setting up a template in Notion that I can check boxes for the goals for every month when I actually complete them. I did put in WIP Go 1 and WIP Go 2 or my goals for each month, and we'll see how long that lasts. But my other goals are for the Grand Library, I'd like to add an additional 10% this year, which equates to I would need to do 3,650 stitches a month. Seems attainable for now. I would like to finish Tonight We Ride by Autumn Lane Stitchery by September, and to do that I would need to do 1,200 stitches per month. And I'd also like to finish Away We Ride by Blackbird Designs by September, and that one's a paper pattern, so I'm not entirely sure how many I need to do per month, but I estimated about 650. That's probably a little high, but I'm okay if I have it done before then, totally. So I did meet all those goals for January, but again, same thing with WIP Go. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. It'll just be interesting to see at the end of the year, like which months I met it and which months I didn't, and if I kind of wax and wane or whatever with my motivation. So I'm curious. That's another data thing. I like to track trends, so this will be interesting to see. Okay, so let's get into my stitching. I have a lot to show you. It's very productive. I had 6 new starts, which is crazy. Two of those I actually finished, so they were smaller pieces. I worked on a total of 14 projects, and I did 29,629 stitches, which is the most I've ever done in any month since I started tracking my stitching almost 2 years ago. And to me, that blows me away because on top of, not only did I do 29,000 stitches, but 85% of those were full cross. So it's not like it's super fast to get those done. I will say though, football helps because I started one of the smalls during the championship games on Sunday, and I had it done in 2 days. So it helps to just sit there and watch football and stitch while I'm watching football. I imagine it'll slow down when I'm not just sitting there watching football anymore. Okay, so let's go through my project. First, I'm going to go through the two that I finished. So the first one is Winter Quaker. This is by Primrose Cottage, and I stitched it on 25 count Silvery Moon Lugana, and it is a tiny thing, and I did use the called for color and cotton Battleship, and it is so adorable. Look at that. Let's see if I can actually hold it and get it focus. Come on, focus. No, it doesn't like me. Okay, I'll hold it back here. There. I did end up, I think the pattern has 2023 in the bottom, so I did end up changing that to the 4. I've seen several people do that, and there's different versions of the 4, and I had already stitched this, and I'm like, oh man, I really like the one I think the Camping Stitcher did with like a cross, but I'm going to leave it. It's fine. And I have to say, I finished this in 4 days, and I loved working with the color and cotton and like the monochromatic variegated thread and on a Quaker. So I see a lot of Quakers and monochromatic variegated thread in my feature. So this is Winter Quaker. Love this one. So tiny too. Oh, I've seen a lot of people finish it. There's actually a finishing, Primrose Cottage on their Etsy shop has a finishing pack that has like fabric and rickrack to make a little pillow. But I think I'm going to frame it. I have some plans for like a Valentine's one, and like I also have their Autumn Quaker and Christmas Quaker, and I might get the same frames for them so they can sit up on the floating shelves we have next to the TV and switch them out for the different seasons. I think that'd be really cute. Okay, that was my first finish. My second finish is called Cara Mia Moncher. Forgive my accent, I'm horrible with it. This was a Witchy Stitcher Patreon exclusive. It's not in her shop right now, but she does release them eventually in her shop. She just gives the Patreon first options. This is the one that I started during the playoffs on Sunday, and I finished it yesterday. So I stitched this on 18 count Lovely Lizzie, which is in my shop. And I love it. I did screw up. I know exactly where it is. Right here. See, it's not even. Which meant I was one short and one like too close in when I got to the bottom. And that's what I based starting this base and the words off of. And I didn't realize it till I got all the way over here. So I just said, I am not redoing all of these words and like the border and the vase. I will just I frogged this little part and brought it down one row. So it is off a little bit. It's off one stitch over here. Just not completely even, but I'm okay with that. Like, I think it looks fine. If I didn't know that I had screwed it up, even looking at it, I still have to go, oh yeah, this is off. So it's fine with me. I'm just leaving it as it is. I love this one. I love the Witchy Stitcher. I love the Addams Family. Perfect Valentine little finish, so I love it. Okay, 2 finishes. Not a bad way to start 2024. I've almost beat my record for 2023 already, so I'm on a good roll. Okay, so my next new starts for January, I did start Boreal Forest. This is by Stitches So Beautiful. I am stitching it on 28 count Easy Guide Lugana, and I am doing 3/110 stitch. Here's where I got to. And I did do a total of, what did I do? 3,363 stitches for 4.2%. Okay, next is Flowers Feed the Soul. Here's a picture of what it'll look like when it's done. This is by Happy Mood Point. I think their Etsy shop is called Daily Pattern Post. I am stitching this one on 25 count Lugana in Humorous Hyacinth, which is a color that's available in my shop. And I'm stitching this with PR158 from Silks for You. Here's where I'm at. Gosh, I'm having trouble with focusing today. Okay, so I did a total of 3,216 stitches for 8.05%. Loving the Quaker. Love this purple color, especially against the purple fabric. It's a little hard to tell. It's a very, very light, muted purple. It's very light, but it goes really well with this purple color of the thread. And love working with the silks. I wish it was a little more variegated to give a little bit more contrast, I guess, but I still love the colors and I love how it's coming out. Okay. Let's see. Next is Winter Solstice. This was a new start for January as well. This one is by Joan Elliott Designs, and I'm stitching this on 25 count Lugana in Sensitive Sylvie, which is one of the new colors in my shop as well. I have done a total of 2,570 stitches. I don't know the total percentage because it's not Pattern Keeper compatible, but here is where I'm at. Again with the focus. Come on. Come on, baby. Oh, and I am stitching this one 1/1 full cross with PR 070, which is the Silks for You black. Okay, next was actually a restart. So I had done, this is Cirque de Caro by Ink Circles. I had started it with PR 094, I think. I'm not entirely sure, but it was a Silks for You variegated thread that I had a full hank of, but it was like greens to blues to purples, and it's a really pretty thread. It's a really pretty, like, I will definitely use it. I just wasn't entirely loving it for this particular pattern and all the color changes. I thought for this pattern, I want to do something that's more of a monochromatic variegated thread. And I was thinking that before I even did Winter Quaker. And then I finished Winter Quaker and thought, okay, I need to find something to restart Cirque de Caro on that's more of a monochromatic color. So I did some test stitching with some monochromatic threads that I had and ended up choosing Royal Blue by Color and Cotton. So I restarted it. This is same fabric, 18 count Rugged Rochester, which is a color that's in my shop. And then here is the Royal Blue. And I absolutely love this color. I love it against the fabric. It is so pretty. Here's the problem. They're out of stock. So I really want to work on this. I did do a total of 424 stitches over 2 days and knew I was going to continue in this color and then went to order it and they're out. So I've stopped working on it because I'm too worried they're not going to get it back in stock. And I think it was Frizzy Lizzie Stitches as well that she's starting a project with this color as well and she needed another skein. So I said, I'll give it a couple more weeks. If it's not back in stock, I'll restart this again. I'll find another thread, even though I love this color. And I'll send her my skein that I have left of this color so she doesn't run out. But we'll see. I'm hoping they get it back in stock because it is it seems like one of their regular normal colors that they keep in stock, not like a special edition. So fingers crossed we both get it. Okay, so now we're in my regular WIPs, the stuff that you've seen before. So I will try to show you a picture of where I was at in my last WIP parade. First, I'm going to show you the Grand Library. I have pulled this one back out. This is a giant piece. It is the regular size max color version of this chart. It is Artist is Amy Stewart, charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. I am stitching this one on 18 count Easy Guide Ada, 2/1 full cross. Here's where I was in my WIP parade on my last video. I had taken it out of the key snap, so I did a full picture of it. I'm just going to show it to you in, it's really difficult. Like it's a chore to get it out of the key snap and out of the frame holder. So I'm just going to show you where I'm at now. In January, I did a total of 4,862 stitches for 1.21%. So I did meet my goal. Now here I am working on the mystery section down at the bottom right. You can kind of see like way over there, the guy kind of bending over, starting to come into view. And brick walls. I love how when it starts to get full like this and you start to see some of the picture coming to life. This is part of my struggle with working on this piece too, is it takes so long to get there. It's hard to be motivated to work on it because it does take so long to see anything come out of it. But I'm back at it, and I do have a goal to get, you know, another 10% this year. So I'm well on track for that at over 1% this month. I'm totally okay and very happy if I get more than 10% this year, but hey, if I'm ahead of the game and I need to slow down, which I probably will towards the end of the year, that gives me kind of that leeway to still meet that goal and not have to worry about it. So this is the Grand Library. Back in progress. Okay. Let's see. Next is Away We Ride by Blackbird Designs, another one I want to try to, or one that I want to try to finish this year. I am stitching this one on 18 count Admirable Atticus, which is a color that's in my shop as well. I'm doing it 2/1 full cross. Here's a picture of where I was in my WIP parade in my last video. Did do a lot on this one this month. I did 1,439 stitches, but I have no idea what that means for the total. Here's where I'm at now. This is another one I ran out of the Onyx, and of course 1, 2, 3 Stitch was out of that one as well, but I ended up finding one at Stitchery Express, and I got it I think last week, so I started working on it again. So that is Away We Ride. Next is Fruits of Plenty. This was the Modern Folk Embroidery 2020 or 2021 stitch along. I am stitching this one on 25 count Silvery Moon Lugano, 1/1 full cross in the called for threads. Here's where I was in my last video. Did quite a bit on this one as well. I did 2,050 stitches for an additional 4.33%. Here's where I'm at now. I did finish all of this motif, and I'm able to work my way down now. I'm hoping to finish like across what's in the Q-snap so I can move the entire Q-snap down and back over to the left-hand side to work on that section. Really love Modern Folk Embroidery and working on this one and seeing, this is one where you see it come together pretty quickly, so I enjoy seeing these motifs come together without a ton of effort. Okay. Next is Kringles by Little House Needleworks. I'm also stitching this one an 18 count Admirable Atticus, which is from my shop. I'm doing this one 2/1 full cross. Here is where I was in the last video. I only worked on this 2 days in January, but it's easy because I was working on the brickwork, and it's easy to just, once you get the pattern going, to just continue without having to look at the pattern. So I did an additional 1,182 stitches, and here's where I'm at. I just have to finish the white around the window and then the white around this window, and then I plan to move over and finish the other side of this row in the building, and then I'll move down to the final section. I do plan to do the whole external part of the building, the skeleton of the building, and the sign and door and everything, and work on the windows last, and the beading very, very last. I'm not looking forward to that part, but better than doing French knots, I think. So thank you to Stephanie, who is Will Stitch for Coffee, that shared her beads with me. I'll link her down below for her Instagram. Okay, next is Mugshot Villain Stitch Along. This is a pattern by Abby Sue Designs. It was the final Villain was released yesterday. I am nowhere near doing anything on this one, let alone being caught up. But it turned out to be a good thing because she did say on Facebook maybe like a week or two ago that she was going to release some extra villains. So I might wait and see what she releases and see if I'm going to swap out some of the villains for some of my other favorites. So I am stitching this one on 18 count Epically Evil Fairy Godmother, which is another fabric from my shop. It's one I designed specifically for this stitch along. Here's where I was in my last video. I'm still working on the Queen of Hearts, but I did get some progress on her. I did 952 additional stitches. And it looks very odd without the back stitching, but that's what I do last. So, and I'm thinking about like continuing and doing the stitching and then doing the back stitching for everybody all together, but we'll see. It doesn't really take that long once I get to that point. It's really just it's a lot of stitching. Like this is 952, and really all I did was like the rest of her hair and the crown and the collar. So that's a lot of stitching for what doesn't seem like such a big area. Oh, and then the stripes. It takes a long time. There's a lot of fractional stitches, so I'm not completely motivated to work on this one, but I love how it's coming out. So I really do want to see it finished. I just have to get my gusto up to get there. Okay. My next one is Night Circus Lovely number 7. This is artist is Jessica Jackson, and it's charted by the Sewing Shop Inc. I am stitching this one on 25 count Easy Guide Lugana. This is another one I'm doing 3/110 stitch. Here's where I was in my last video. This one I'm stitching cross country, and I'm color completing. Right, I've completed all the 310 and then 939, and now I'm working on 37.99. Here's where I am now. I'm just working this section at this point, filling in the 37.99 all the way across. It's a big chunk of this whole corner. And then there's a little bit around her hair and then a little bit in another corner, but really the majority of it is up in here. So I didn't take it out of the Q-snap. Okay, next is No Time Like the Present. This is the 2024 Modern Folk Embroidery Stitch Along. I did start it in December. I'm not intending to keep up with the actual stitch along schedule. I'm not even following it. I think the January goal is like this one strip all the way across the top, and that's not how I'm working it. I'm just working what's in the Q-snap. I'm stitching this one on 18 count Silver Moon. This one isn't silvery. It's called Silver Moon. I don't know if there's a difference. Ada, and I'm stitching it 2/1 full cross with Roxy Flosco, Yonder, and Titanium. And here is where I've gotten to. I did an additional 1,738 stitches for 4.88%. No, wait, that's, yeah, 4.88%. And I did change the pattern calls for this flower here to be in the darker color or in an alternate color, but I changed it. I wanted it fully gray all the way across. I may make a couple other color changes. Like I think I might do the buck that's at the bottom in the darker color, but leave the squirrels in the gray. We'll see when I get there. I really love this Yonder, the darker blue, and I kind of want that to be more of the dominant color, but it seems to be that this is more of a dominant color, so I'm going to probably make some changes to get more blue in there. So No Time Like the Present. I did a bunch in December too, so I'm currently at 14.04% in total. So if I can keep that at about 10% more per month for the rest of the year, I might be able to finish that one too. But we'll see. I have a lot of lofty goals this year. Okay, my last WIP is Tonight We Ride by Autumn Lane Stitchery. I'm stitching this one at 18 count Genuine Jillian, which is a color that's not currently in my shop. It's one that I've created. It's not currently in there, but it will be making a comeback. I'm trying to do rotations of colors so I'm not overwhelmed by orders of multiple colors, and it ends up taking me longer to get them out. So sometimes they'll disappear, but they'll come back and be on the rotation. This is where I was in my last video, and during January I did meet my goal and actually surpassed it a little bit. I did 1,643 stitches for an additional 11%. And here's where I'm at. Trying to get the right color. It is darker, a darker orange than it's showing up right now. I finished this witch over on this side and I started working on the house down towards the bottom. I did completely screw up, and you can see some of the little fibers down in the house that I had to frog a bunch. So I probably would have been a lot further if I hadn't screwed that up and had to frog. I tried to fit it, but it was like too far. Oh, that's more like the orange. It was too far this way and down, or like up. It was just, I couldn't quite wrap my brain around how much I would have to pay attention to the rest of it to get it right towards the bottom. And I just figured it was easier to frog it than try to remember how far I was off for the rest of the house. So I just did that and redid it. But it did take a couple of hours. So hopefully no more scripts like that. That is more like the orange that it actually is. So that's probably a good representation of it. So not bad. I do want to finish this one by September, and I'm currently at 38.97%. So that's pretty good. That seems attainable for this year. Okay, so that was the last of my WIPs. Now I want to talk about my haul. I didn't go crazy. I did purchase some Vicky Clayton silks, but I don't have them with me. It was another one of those things that I wanted to give them a try and look at some more of those variegated threads for testing on restarting Cirque de Caro. Didn't end up deciding on any of hers, but I have them now in my stash and cataloged in my Notion template. So very exciting. But I did purchase 2 patterns from the Camping Stitcher on Etsy, and I will link it down below. The 2 I purchased were Be Mine, and then I also purchased Love You Most. So I think these are, if not, definitely Love You Most I'll start, and then I'll probably do Be Mine if I finish Love You Most before Valentine's Day, or while I'm still in the mood for Valentine's Day. I think those will be like one of those rotations. Once I take Winter Quaker down, I will put that one in like a similar size frame or a similar looking frame in the same space on my shelf. Okay, so now for plans for February. The WIP Go calls for February. Jessie Marie does stuff, pulls the numbers, so I'm just following whatever her numbers are. They were 3 and 24. So those are The Perfect Love I Never Had by Adrienne Borda, which is charted by Unconventional Cross Stitch, and then Tonight We Ride by Autumn Lane Stitchery. So starting with The Perfect Love I Never Had, it happens that Kaylee Tan Stitch and then Carla from Stitch Me Sane are participating in a challenge in February to stitch on an unconventional cross stitch piece every day in February. They are hashtagging it UXS29 for the 29 days in February. Since it's already a call for WIP Go, and it's also my smallest full coverage piece, I may participate in that because I think I can get a whole lot done if I combine that, the WIP Go goal, plus the challenge, and do maybe just like combine that with like Sarah Stitchy's spot 2 strands a day idea, I could get a lot done. I do have other unconventional cross stitch pieces that I have started, and I have several that I want to start, but I'm really trying to limit what I start until I get at least, maybe not full coverage done, but at least more progress, or get a couple more pieces done in general, just that I don't have a lot of giant pieces in my rotation. The other WIP Go call was Tonight We Ride, which with my WIP Go goal is 1,000 stitches, but I already had Tonight We Ride on my monthly goals with 1,200 stitches. So I'm kind of considering, do I take the easy way out and just say 1,200 stitches meets both goals? Or do I say I really want to finish this one and I'm going to do both goals and do 2,200 stitches? We'll see how February goes. It is a short month and it's going to be busy, so I may change my mind. Right now, I'm going to try to do the full 2,200 stitches, but we'll see how that goes. And then my other goals for February, I'm hoping to do, I really loved working on like Winter Quaker and Cara Mia and like being able to finish something quickly. So I think I will do at least one of the Camping Stitchers patterns for February as a new start. And then I also have, this may not be for February, this may be something I save for Manning May, but in the Just Cross Stitch magazine that just came out, this is, I don't know if it, April 2024. There is a Carolyn Manning Designs pattern, and I love it. It is called Hummingbird Garden. So, so pretty. It calls for Sullivan's threads, but I did look up and there is a DMC conversion. So I did write down all the DMCs that I would need for it. The only thing I wouldn't have is like the little hummingbird charms, but I think I'm okay with that. I might still try to find some charms or see if I can order those charms, but I really like this. So we'll see. That might wait till Manning May because I'm trying to limit the new starts a little bit. Okay. So there's all my WIPs, all my plans, all my organization. You've made it to the end of the video. Thank you for sticking with me. I do now want to do a giveaway. So thank you to everyone who's been a subscriber, who's been watching me since I started, or has joined recently. If you're not a subscriber, I'd really appreciate it if you do hit that subscribe button. Thank you to all the shout outs from all of the other YouTubers or Flosstubers and all the people on Instagram, all the people in the local Stitchy group, for helping me get to these 2,000 subscribers. As a thank you, I do want to do a fabric giveaway of a quarter piece of fabric from my shop. You can choose any color in any sort of stitch count in any fabric. I'm okay with international. You just have to be 18 years or older, and I do ask that you are a subscriber. Please don't use the word giveaway or prize or anything in the comments. What I would like you to do is use the word winter. And in order to get to know you a little more, I'd like to ask, what is your favorite winter beverage? It's been pretty cold around here. It was raining a couple hours ago. Now the sun's coming out. It's crazy. And it was like, I don't know, 20 degrees a couple weeks ago or last week. And then the next day it was like 75. So it's odd weather right now for Northern California. But my favorite winter beverage, I do not drink coffee or tea, but because of the cold weather, I do like something hot. So my favorite is the Starbucks peppermint hot chocolate. Yum. Makes me want one right now. I may need to go get one. So what is your favorite winter beverage? If you'd like to enter the giveaway for the fabric, use the word winter. Tell me what your favorite winter beverage is. Okay, so for all the Stitchy friends, that is the end of the Stitchy segment of my video. Thank you for joining me. I hope you come back. Please leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. I'm going to move on to books and talk about the books that I read during January. It was actually a productive book month for me as well. I'm having a little trouble with my eyesight and some ocular migraines, and I did switch glasses that they're trying to help alleviate some of that. But in order to adjust to the glasses and be able to stitch, I used to stitch and watch TV, but I can't change my focus as easily anymore without getting a headache. So I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks while I'm stitching, and I love it. So I did have a lot of progress in reading. Some are Kindle, some are physical books, and some are audiobooks. So I had 11 books that I completed in January. Goodreads releases early in the year, or whatever the voters' choices are for the best books of the prior year. So I'm slowly working my way through that list. I try to get through at least the top 5 or so of my favorite genres, which are fiction, historical fiction, romance, and then sometimes thriller. I don't typically do the top 5 of thriller, maybe the top 2 or 3. So, and then I have some other reads in between that are totally random. So the first 3 books that I read that I'm going to talk about are not my typical go-to genres, but I enjoy them now and then, especially when they're well written. The first 2 books that I'm going to talk about are Sarah J. Maas. I did love the Court of Thorns and Roses series, so I was trying to find something else by Sarah J. Maas to follow. These are the Crown of Thorns series. So I finished book 3 and 4, which are Heir of Fire, and then Queen of Shadows. Not nearly as good as a Court of Thorns and Roses series, but I tried a couple of times for Crescent City series, and it's just overwhelming me. I cannot follow all the different characters and all the different backstory that's introduced in even the first chapter. I even reread it multiple times, and I just can't get into it because there's so much going like thrown at you in the first chapter. I may try it again at some point, but right now this one worked for me. This series is working for me. I'm still on the fence about how my love-hate relationship with the main character of this book, but she's growing on me as she evolves through the book. So we'll see how this goes. They're fairly good if you're a Sarah J. Maas fan, but don't expect anything to be like ACOTAR. It's not that. The next book I read was Die Trying by Lee Child. This is the number 2 of the Jack Reacher series. On Amazon Prime, they released season 2 of the Jack Reacher. Oh my gosh, why am I having so much trouble with that? Of the TV series that they've been running on Jack Reacher. And I really liked the TV series, so I thought I would give the books a try. And I borrowed a few from my friend. I did not read book number 1, but she had reassured me, like, you don't have to read them in order. They're kind of standalone by themselves, and they absolutely were. And this one was basically a female FBI agent gets kidnapped. Jack Reacher just happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and near her, and he gets kidnapped too. They're kidnapped by this extremist group that uses them basically for their agenda. And of course, as typical Jack Reacher, action and violence and everything, death ensues. It was my first time reading Jack Reacher, so I was really impressed with some of the technical and psychological analysis that goes on in the book. And it was a good read, and it was a pretty fast read, so I think I will continue. I have a couple more that I borrowed. I'll continue with some other ones and see how I like the series. The next ones were romance section, or romance genre. I listened to Thank You for Listening by Julia Whalen. She also narrated the audiobook. She is pretty famous for being an audiobook narrator. And I originally, when I saw this came out that she had written it, I originally thought it was like more autobiographical about her being a narrator, but it actually was fiction. And I did like the depth of the characters and the character development throughout the book. There's some insecurities by the lead character about new relationships and appearances and career choice and life decisions. And I feel like in general, and she even says something in it about the difference between like romance and love books or something. And I feel like there's like more depth to some of the romance characters lately, so I can appreciate that. The next one I read was Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. This was actually really funny. The premise is kind of a Saturday Night Live based type show. A female writer on the show is the main character, and there's a famous musician host that's very handsome, and even in his pitch meeting for what they're talking about for the skits they're going to do, she talks about basically the societal norm of, or double standard essentially, of not so good looking male writers can get the best looking hot model actress females, but the same doesn't work for even the good looking female writers. And she makes a joke about it being kind of against the law, and they do a skit about it. But basically things progress, and it takes place during COVID, and she starts having a email communication, and there's a lot of with that musician, there's a lot of insecurities and things in this book as well, but a lot of character development. It was cute and sweet, but really did have me laughing out loud at a few points, so it was a good read. The next one I read was Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This was the Goodreads Reader's Choice for the Best Fiction Book of 2023. Now, it was good, but it was no Hello Beautiful by Ann Napolitano, which came in second for the Reader's Choice. Hello Beautiful touched my heart a lot more, so I was a little skeptical of Yellowface and why did this get voted for the number 1 book. It was good. It's very reminiscent of Crime and Punishment and being haunted by your guilt over a crime you committed, but maybe that's part of the point. It's the irony of the book, because it is about somebody stealing somebody else's book idea. There were a couple times I got really irritated with the main character and just wanted to hit her. Because of all her whining and like victimizing herself when she really is at fault. But it was well written and engrossing, and the fact that I did feel even anger towards her, or feel frustrated by her, does give some insight into how well it was written, because I did feel emotions about it. So it was a good read, and I would recommend it. The next book I read was The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. It was very sweet and especially relatable to anybody who didn't have maybe the best of childhoods and kind of wish for that escape. This is about a children's author who kind of offered that escape in his books to the kids that were reading them, about how things can be better on this island that he lived on. And there's a couple of kids throughout the years that did actually run away from home and go try to find him and find him on the island. And basically it becomes, as they become adults, he runs this kind of Willy Wonka-esque game of inviting them back as adults to play in this game to get his most recent, the exclusive copy of his most recent book. So it was very cute. I would recommend it. It was very sweet and very happy ending. And so I appreciate that. It was a nice uplifting story, even through all the kind of trauma of the backstory. Next, I read The Invisible Hour by Alice Hoffman. The first half was like, Alice Hoffman writes a lot of witch-based books. So the first half was very typical Alice. It was different from Alice Hoffman and what she typically writes, and I really liked it. It takes place in a cult, another cult for some reason. Seems to be a theme this month. But a cult environment, and the different generations, the mother and daughter taking the roles within that environment, and how the daughter kind of saves herself through books and finding the library, even though books and, really even all outside contact is forbidden. But books become her salvation. So obviously with my love of books, I could appreciate that. It did take a different turn towards the second half of the book, and some sort of correlation to her finding the Scarlet Letter and a relationship with Nathaniel Hawthorne, and I wasn't entirely following, is this actually a dream or time travel? But it comes back together. It started to make sense. It was fine. I think I just missed it a little bit because I was listening to the audiobook. It does bring it back together. I do like Alice Hoffman, but I felt like it was almost two different stories. But I really did love the main character, so I think it was worth reading, especially for something kind of a little different from typical Alice Hoffman. So next, continuing with the theme, this time with the witchy theme, was Wayward by Amelia Hart. This is another witchy-esque story of 3 different generations of women. One is from the 1600s and is on trial for being a witch. One is in the 1940s, and then one is more present day, and like their connection as women and similar struggles with abusive relationships, or like witnessing a friend in an abusive relationship, whether it's a parent, a friend, a partner, and like how the past generations help throughout the years in dealing with that. So it was nice to see the connection come all together. It was more witchy, oddly, than the Alice Hoffman book, but not like over the top putting spells or anything. It was more just like a connection with nature. So good one. Like that one as well. Next one I read was Don't Forget to Write by Sarah Goodman Confino. This takes place during the 1960s, and a girl that's kind of ahead of her time. She doesn't necessarily want to conform to societal norms and what the expectations are of women. She's in college, but gets in trouble with boys and gets threatened to be taken out of college. She gets shipped off to her kind of eccentric aunt who's a little more strict and stern, and she's not looking forward to it. They end up really taking to each other and really loving each other, and she evolves as a person and starts to learn and grow, and really good character archetypes, and really, really love the aunt character. She was a fussy, just fun old lady and set in her ways, so loved her character. The last one I want to talk about is Mame by Jessica George. This one really hit me in all the feels. So it was definitely my favorite read for January. I think for anyone that's been a caregiver for their family, especially if you were a caregiver as a kid or had expectations of helping to raise your younger siblings or take care of family members that were ill, this one, and maybe like had to grow up too fast didn't really have a chance to have a childhood. There's some insight into, my psychological history, but this is really, really relatable if you're in that role, or even if you've been a caregiver as an adult. And I think a lot of us as moms, we are, or even as partners or in careers. Like, it's a little bit about the guilt we have for not doing enough, even though we already do so much. So I think it's relatable in that way, even if you didn't have like a childhood with a lot of expectations. So I did find, and I didn't really realize the connection to the character and how much of me I saw in her until about 3/4 of the way through the book, when she started going to counseling sessions. And it ended up being very therapeutic for me, some of the things that they were talking about, because I could relate so well to how the counselor gave her feedback. So hit me in the feels just because it was so personally relatable. Really, really good for anybody that does have that guilt or had that family responsibility. It's not like, it's culturally very different because it is not, it takes place in England, and it's a family that immigrated from Ghana. The mom still goes back and forth from Ghana, and that's part of why the daughter has a lot of the responsibility for the family, because she's the one that's still at home, even at a very young age. So that part, like, but it wasn't, it wasn't a main archetype of the whole book. It was really just that the character in general, with all of her guilt and all of her responsibility, was something that I could relate with. So really, really good. Definitely recommend that one. Favorite read of January. Okay. So I think that was all 11 books. That was quite a long video. Probably a little more talking about that last one than I intended to talk about all the books, but hopefully you enjoyed that. Please let me know in the comments if the books are something you'd like me to continue with. I think I will for at least 2024, as long as everybody's still interested. I doubt I'll continue to read 11 every month. It'll probably slow down quite a bit. Or maybe just, if you have suggestions, if you just want me to highlight like my top couple of favorite and not talk about everything, I'm totally okay with that. Open to whatever your suggestions are and what you would like to see or what you're interested in, because I know I enjoy seeing what other people are reading and hearing what they like, so that I can go out and read those books as well. So thank you, everybody, if you stuck with me this long. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.